My sister says I betrayed her, but she doesn't know the full story. She doesn't know what I uncovered, or why I'll never forgive her. Some secrets are too heavy to ever come back from. For my 30th birthday, my family packed their bags, boarded a plane, and flew to Tahiti without me. I didn't even know about it until I logged onto Facebook. And there it was, staring me in the face, a picture-perfect post that read, "A wonderful day for a wonderful family." I typed one word, "Why?" It took less than a minute for my dad to respond. His reply? "We didn't want to waste our time on a clown." I remember just sitting there, my jaw tightening, the silence in the room stretching so long it felt like it might choke me. Then, without even thinking, I smiled and wrote back, "Surprise waiting for you." And I meant it. That was the exact second I made my decision. 2 weeks later, the house was filled with screams, my sister's voice breaking, my mother sobbing, and my father on his knees, begging, "We're family, please." But let me rewind. Because the truth is, turning 30 wasn't supposed to feel like this. It wasn't about wrinkles or candles or some cliché midlife crisis. It was about realizing, really realizing, that maybe I never mattered to the people who were supposed to matter most to me. That morning started off deceptively sweet. I woke up early to the smell of something burning. Emily, my wife, was in the kitchen, wrestling with pancakes that looked more like blobs than circles. Our son, Noah, came running into the bedroom, clutching a crumpled card he'd made at school. Dinosaurs and superheroes sketched in marker, because that's still what I was to him. His hero. His dad. I hugged him tighter than usual, burying my face in his hair, letting myself breathe him in like I could freeze that moment. We sat at the table, eating misshapen pancakes, laughing as the syrup stuck to our fingers. For a brief moment, I convinced myself it was enough. That maybe a small, quiet birthday with just the two people who truly loved me was all I needed. But then came the silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing from my mom. Nothing from my dad. Nothing from Olivia, my sister. The same sister I practically raised when our parents gave up halfway through raising me. Emily kept trying to distract me, throwing out bits of conversation, smiling too wide, asking if I wanted more coffee. I brushed her off. Pretended not to notice the weight of what wasn't happening. Deep down, I still made excuses for them. Maybe they had a surprise planned. Maybe the time zones threw them off. Maybe they'd call later. But after lunch, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I opened Facebook. And there it was. A sun-drenched beach, palm trees swaying, water so blue it almost hurt to look at. My whole family was there. Everyone. Even Uncle Rob, who lives 6 states away and never travels. They were all grinning, tan, carefree. The caption? "A wonderful day for a wonderful family." For a second, my brain tried to trick me. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe it was a memory. But no. It had been posted just 11 minutes ago. Fresh. Live. And definitely not including me. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up. I stared at the screen, waiting for something, anything, that made sense. Against my better judgment, I typed it, "Why?" And my father, my own father, didn't even hesitate. His words landed like a knife, "We didn't want to waste time on the clown." I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just smiled. Because in that moment, everything clicked. No more second-guessing where I stood with them. No more pretending they loved me deep down. No more lies. I typed my final message, "You're in for a surprise." Then I closed the app. Put my phone face down. Stood up. And that was it. For years, I'd been their safety net, their invisible lifeline. The rent I paid so Olivia could live near her college. The tuition checks I sent, without so much as a thank you. The car repairs I covered for Dad when he let his insurance lapse. The credit card bills I quietly paid when Mom maxed them out on shopping sprees she called emergencies. All of it, quietly, without recognition. Month after month. Year after year. And in return? They flew to paradise without me and called me a clown. That morning, while Noah built Lego towers on the floor and Emily sat in the corner pretending not to cry, I decided it was over. 2 weeks. That's all it would take. 2 weeks before the shock set in. 2 weeks before the begging started. If they thought they could erase me from their lives, they were about to learn the hard way. Sometimes the clown is the one running the show. The very first thing I did was pick up the phone. Call after call, one by one, I started cutting the strings that tied me to them. First stop, the bank. Then the college. Then utilities. Every single payment I had quietly handled for years? Done. Gone. Olivia's tuition? Cancelled. She'd built her whole life on the comfort of me swooping in each semester, paying off the balance so she could focus on books and parties instead of getting a part-time job. Well, welcome to adulthood, Olivia. Crash course starting now. Her off-campus apartment? Rent pulled. The landlord had my number, not hers, so I made sure he knew, effective immediately, she was responsible for every dime. And my parents? Oh, they were about to feel it too. Those low, manageable bills they always bragged about? They never realized they were low because I was covering the difference. Electricity, water, gas, internet, shut off from my side. Even Dad's car insurance. I called the company myself and let them know the next payment wasn't coming. Emily sat on the couch the whole time, silent, watching. She didn't interrupt. She just kept Noah upstairs with his Lego fortress until I finished my last call. Then she came to sit next to me. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked softly. I looked at her, and in that moment, there wasn't even a shred of doubt left inside me. "You made it easy for me," I told her. And I meant it. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Not a single text. Not a single call. Just Facebook posts of them tanning, laughing, drinking cocktails on the beach. Pretending I didn't exist. Pretending the son they'd abandoned was just a ghost. And strangely, for those 2 weeks, I felt lighter. Like a weight had finally slid off my chest. But good things don't last when it comes to people like them. The night they came back, I felt it before I saw them. That heavy tension in the air, that storm that builds before thunder cracks. Olivia had actually texted Emily earlier, asking if we could talk. Emily just showed me the message, rolled her eyes, laughed, and deleted it. Around 8 o'clock that night, it came, the knock. Loud. Sharp. That kind of pounding that says, "You owe me." I hadn't even reached the bottom of the stairs before Emily was already at the door. She opened it without smiling. And there they were. My parents, with Olivia hovering behind them, arms crossed, all 3 of them looking sunburned, miserable, and furious. My mother didn't even bother with a hello. She stormed right in like she owned the house, Olivia right on her heels. My dad hesitated on the porch for half a second before Emily stepped aside, arms crossed, and he shuffled in too. "We need to talk," my mother snapped. Emily's voice cut through the air, steady and cold. "No. You need to listen." Dad tried to play peacemaker, plastering on that fake, weary smile. He started babbling about how shocked they were, coming home to eviction notices, unpaid tuition, disconnected utilities. How they couldn't understand what was going on. How we're family, and family sticks together. And just as he was speaking, I saw Noah peeking down the staircase, confusion written all over his little face. My chest clenched. I scooped him up without a word, carried him straight back to his room, and shut the door. Because whatever storm was about to break downstairs, I wasn't letting him anywhere near it. By the time I came back downstairs, it was already chaos. Emily wasn't holding back anymore. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't crying, she was surgical. Calm, steady, but her words cut sharper than any scream ever could. She laid it all out. Every single bill I'd paid, every debt I'd quietly covered, every sacrifice I'd made while they treated me like an afterthought. "You bled him dry for years," she said, her voice flat and icy. "And you didn't even think he deserved a birthday call. You're not family, you're parasites." My mother's eyes went wide. She tried to squeeze out tears, her voice cracking in a fake cry that sounded rehearsed. Olivia snapped back at Emily, spitting out that she was manipulative, toxic, a problem. And my dad? He did what he always does, slapped on that fake grin and tried to play the peacekeeper. "Son," he said, shaking his head at me like I was a child, "she's poisoning you. You've got to get control of your household. You can't let her turn you against your own blood." Something in me broke right then. But not in the way it used to, no guilt, no shame, no crushing sadness. For the first time in my life, I felt free. "Get out," I said. They froze like they didn't understand English. Just stood there, gaping. So I said it again, slower this time. "Out, out." Emily didn't budge from the doorway until every last one of them had stepped outside. Then she slammed the door so hard the windows rattled in their frames. And in the silence that followed, my chest loosened. I knew it wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the barrage started. First, a long text from my dad. Paragraphs about how hard it had been raising me, about all the sacrifices they made, about how I was ungrateful and cruel. Then came my mom's voicemail, half sobbing, half screaming. "Emily's turning you against us. She's controlling you. We're losing our son to some woman." Olivia's messages were shorter. No theatrics, no sugarcoating. Just pure venom. "You're ruining my future. You owe me. I can't believe you let that gold digger brainwash you." I didn't respond to a single one. Not a word. Instead, Emily and I took Noah to the park. We bought him ice cream, pushed him on the swings, let him laugh until his cheeks turned red. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a wallet with sneakers. I felt like a dad. A husband. A man who finally belonged to his real family. But make no mistake, ignoring them didn't mean surrendering. Not even close. This was just round one. ChatGPT said. That night, while Emily was upstairs giving Noah his bath, the pounding started again. This time, my dad didn't bother with polite knocking. No, he was hammering on the door like a cop with a warrant. The kind of pounding that makes the walls shake. I cracked the door just enough to see them, my parents and Olivia, standing there looking furious, drained, like their vacation glow had finally burned out. "We need to talk," my dad said, already pushing the door wider. I didn't move back. I stayed right where I was. "We already did," I told him. My mom instantly went into her performance. The broken bird act. Shoulders sagging, eyes blinking fast, wiping at tears that weren't even there. "We're a family," she whispered. "You're letting her drive a wedge between us." Emily came down the stairs just in time to hear that. She didn't say a single word, she didn't have to. She just stood behind me, arms folded, a steady presence at my back. I leaned against the frame and looked at my parents carefully, almost like I was studying strangers. Then I spoke. "You know what's funny? For years I've paid your bills. Covered your mistakes. Took care of everything Olivia needed, everything the two of you wanted. And you barely said thank you. But the second I stop handing out cash like an ATM, suddenly, I'm brainwashed. Suddenly, Emily's the villain. You didn't lose a son. You lost a wallet." For once, my dad didn't have a quick comeback. His face dropped, his jaw tight. He wasn't used to hearing me talk like that. "She makes you think we're the enemy," he muttered finally, almost desperate. "She's too comfortable, Thomas. She's overstepping. It's not right." Emily let out a laugh, short, sharp, almost cruel. I turned to look at her, calm and steady, then back at them. "You think she's the problem? She's the reason I woke up. She's the reason I finally saw you for what you really are." My mom's lips trembled, ready to launch into another performance, but I cut her off before she could start. You went to Tahiti without me. You told the world I was a clown. And you really thought I just, what? Keep paying? Keep playing the fool? They had no answer. You are no longer my responsibility, I said, my voice low, steady. None of you are. And you don't get to decide who is family, you already made that choice. I tilted my head toward the road. Go. For a second, my dad looked like he was about to fight back, maybe launch into one of his legendary guilt trip monologues. But something in my face must have told him it wouldn't work this time. Not anymore. He turned. Olivia muttered a curse under her breath. My mother started crying real tears this time, but no one cared. Emily shut the door behind them without a word. We didn't talk after that. Not for a long time. We just sank onto the couch together, listening to the silence of the house, breathing like people who had finally escaped a burning building. For a few days, it was like the whole world had gone still. No texts. No phone calls. No pounding on the front door. Just silence. Emily and I didn't talk much about it. We didn't need to. There was this quiet understanding between us now, something unspoken but solid. We were done begging people to respect us. Done bankrolling people who thought their lives were better without us. If only it had ended there. But people like them? They don't fade into the background. They claw their way back in. On the 5th day, a letter showed up in the mail. No return address, just my name scribbled across the front. I opened it on the kitchen counter while Emily sat in the living room helping Noah sound out his spelling words. Inside was one single sheet of paper, handwritten in my mother's perfect, overly dramatic cursive. A full page of flowery nonsense about forgiveness, blood ties, and a mother's unconditional love. She begged me to come to my senses before it was too late to repair the damage. And at the very end? She had the audacity to ask if I could send Olivia a check for her next semester. As a gesture of goodwill. I actually read it twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Emily caught the look on my face and came over. I handed her the letter without a word. She read it once, didn't flinch, and then tore it cleanly in half. Straight into the trash. Not a blink. Not a sigh. Just done. That night, Olivia tried her own version of apology. My phone lit up with a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. The second I said hello, her voice spilled out in a rush. She was stressed, she didn't mean the things she'd said. She was under so much pressure. She'd made mistakes. You're my big brother, she pleaded, we shouldn't let stupid stuff come between us. I stayed quiet. Let her ramble. Let her run out of excuses. When she finally paused, I said one thing, you need to find another idiot to finance your life. I'm retired. The silence on the other end broke into sobs, curses, both at once. I hung up and blocked the number. 2 days later, it was my dad. He showed up at my office, just like I knew he eventually would. He came in with that fake warmth, the same rehearsed smile he always used when he wanted something. He sat down like he owned the place and launched into his speech. He said he understood why I was upset, but that a real man doesn't let a woman come between him and his blood. And that's when it hit me. They actually believed it. They truly thought Emily was the puppet master, pulling my strings, turning me against them. I leaned back in my chair, looked him square in the eye, and said, you never lost me to Emily. You lost me all by yourself. He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. You didn't raise a son. You raised a backup plan. And you didn't even bother to hide it. For the first time in years, he looked different to me. Smaller. Older. Weaker. You made your choice when you booked that flight, I told him. You made it again when you laughed about it on Facebook. He tried to backpedal, muttering about how families fight and families forgive. I shook my head. Families also know when to stop taking advantage. Then I stood, pointed to the door, and said, this conversation is over. He didn't argue. Didn't shout. Didn't even try one last guilt trip. My dad just stared at me, long, hard, like he didn't even recognize who I'd become, and then he turned and walked out. When I got home that night, Emily was waiting. She must have read it in my face, because she didn't ask what happened. She just took my hand, led me upstairs, and we sat there in the dark beside Noah's bed, listening to his soft little breaths as he slept. And for the first time in years, the house felt light. No ringing phones dragging me into someone else's emergency. No late-night texts about a broken-down car or another dental bill that magically popped up. No emails from Olivia begging for money for books she never bought. Just peace. Emily and I actually had space to breathe, to dream. We stayed up late at night talking about what we wanted. Moving somewhere quieter. Finding a bigger place where Noah could grow up without constant chaos hanging over us. Finally taking that Europe trip we always put off because, what if my parents need something? For once, we weren't living for them. We were living for us. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Not really. Sure enough, on a Tuesday afternoon, my lawyer called. His tone was sharp, professional, but I could hear the edge of irritation. They've been making inquiries, he said. Your sister tried to tell the college you agreed to keep paying. Your parents claimed you had an oral contract to support them. I've sent warnings, but be prepared. They're desperate. I actually laughed. Desperate was right. They'd been riding the free train for so long, it never even crossed their minds that I could pull the brakes. I didn't reach out. Didn't explain. I let them sit in it. Until Saturday. Emily and I were in the backyard with Noah, working on the half-built treehouse. The sun was warm, the sky clear, a perfect spring day. Noah was handing me nails one by one, taking his role as foreman very seriously. I almost let myself believe maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind us. Then I heard it. Tires screeching out front. I didn't even have to look. I knew. I told Noah to stay with Emily, wiped the sawdust from my hands, and walked around the house. And there they were. My parents. Olivia. Standing in my driveway like soldiers reporting for battle. But this time, they didn't come empty-handed. Olivia stepped forward, smug as ever, and beside her stood some skinny guy in his late 20s. Greasy hair, cheap suit, a clipboard clutched like it was a weapon. He looked like she'd picked him up at a lawyer-for-hire kiosk at the mall. "This is my attorney," Olivia announced, puffing her chest like the words alone should terrify me. The guy cleared his throat, voice shaky but trying to sound official. "I'm here to serve you notice. You are in default of your familial obligations. If you don't reconsider your financial responsibilities, we will pursue appropriate legal action." I almost laughed right in his face. I just stared at the guy for a long beat, letting the silence stretch. Then I started laughing, deep, raw, gut-wrenching laughter that made him shift on his feet. "Good luck," I said finally, pulling a thick envelope from my back pocket. I had prepared it weeks ago, just in case they ever tried something exactly like this. I handed it over. Inside was a complete record of every dime I had ever given them. Bank transfers, receipts, email threads, screenshots of texts from my mother begging for money and me replying, clearly, that it wasn't a loan, it was a gift. Ironclad proof that any courtroom stunt would turn into a public humiliation. I watched Olivia's smugness dissolve as her so-called lawyer flipped through the papers. His face tightened with every page, and I could see it hitting him. This wasn't just a weak case. This was career suicide level bad. My dad stepped forward, puffing out his chest like that still meant something. "A real man doesn't abandon his family," he barked. That's when Emily came around the corner, Noah's small hand in hers. She looked my father dead in the eye and smiled. "A real man knows when to take out the garbage." For a second, I thought my dad might actually swing at me. His face went red, his hands shook, but in the end, he didn't. He muttered something under his breath and stormed off toward the car. My mom trailed after him, but not before shooting Emily a look that could have stripped paint from the house. "Olivia, though?" She wasn't finished. Her voice rose, shrill, cracking at the edges. "You're going to throw away your real family for her? For some nobody?" I looked her dead in the eye, calm as ever. "You made yourself a nobody the day you decided I didn't matter unless I was writing checks." And then, because I couldn't resist, I added, "Good luck finding someone else dumb enough to finance your addiction to designer handbags." Emily snorted out a laugh. Olivia's face flushed bright red, almost purple. Her lawyer suddenly decided he wanted no part of this disaster. He started backing away toward his car, flipping the clipboard shut like it was radioactive. Seconds later, they all piled into their vehicle and tore off down the road, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Emily, Noah, and I walked back to the backyard like nothing had happened. I lifted Noah into the half-built treehouse, and as he giggled, I promised him we'd finish it before summer. I picked up my hammer and drove the next board into place, and that's when it hit me. It didn't hurt anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their weight. I was free. A month passed. No contact. No drama. Nothing but quiet. It was almost eerie. Part of me kept waiting, some fake medical crisis, a last-minute guilt trip, another scheme to reel me back in. But nothing came. Emily and I signed papers on a new house 2 towns over. Bigger yard, better schools for Noah. No shadows of the past. Life was finally moving forward, sharp and clean, like a knife slicing through everything rotten we'd left behind. I had almost let myself believe the nightmare was done. Until the letter came. It wasn't from my parents. It wasn't from Olivia. This letter came from a real attorney, representing a financial institution I didn't recognize. Inside was a bombshell that nearly knocked the air out of me. 6 months earlier, my parents had taken out a massive personal loan. And somehow, they had listed me as the co-signer. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. Without my signature. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. I called the attorney listed on the paperwork, my hands trembling as I punched in the number. The conversation was short, tense, every word sharp like a blade. And then it became clear, they had forged my signature. Now that they had defaulted, the bank was coming after me. I sat in the quiet house, staring at the wall, feeling that old familiar anger rising back like bile. I thought I'd buried it, thought I was free. And yet, here they were again, clawing at my life. Emily came into the room. She didn't ask, didn't prod. She just sat beside me, waiting. When I finally told her, she didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She smiled. "Good," she said. "Now we bury her properly." She was right. I hired a forensic document examiner. Paid out of pocket. Less than a week later, the results came back, 100% forgery. With that in hand, my attorney filed charges, not civil ones, not petty claims. Real criminal charges. Fraud. Forgery. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about principle. About making sure they couldn't do this to me, or anyone else, again. When the police showed up at their door, it wasn't a polite knock. It was a warrant. A full-scale raid. I heard later that Olivia broke down, sobbing as they put my father in cuffs. My mother fainted on the front lawn. And by that evening, it was plastered across the local news. Respected community couple arrested for forging son's identity in $80,000 loan scandal. Emily and I sat on the couch that night, popcorn in hand, watching the story unfold on TV like it was some twisted movie. Neighbors who once whispered that I was a bad son now couldn't even look me in the eye. The fallout was brutal and fast. They lost their house. Olivia was expelled. Student loans don't play well with financial fraud convictions. They became exactly what they had always accused me of being, nothing. The irony was almost too much to process. A month later, after the dust had settled, I found a note taped to our new mailbox. Just 3 words, written by hand: "We're sorry." No explanation. No signature. Emily and I didn't even read it twice. We burned it in the fire pit out back. That summer, Noah finished his treehouse. We hung a tire swing, started actually planning our long-delayed Europe trip. Sometimes at night, I'd lie awake thinking about it all. About how quickly everything crumbled. How fragile family really is when loyalty only flows one way. But mostly I thought about how good it felt to live a life they couldn't touch. And how funny it was that the clown they mocked turned out to be the only one who knew the whole show was a joke. Update. By the time 6 months had passed in the new house, life felt normal. Peaceful. Noah had stopped asking why Grandma and Grandpa never came around. I'd stopped thinking about them altogether. Then, one morning, Emily got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But this time, it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to her. She opened it slowly, her face unreadable the entire time. When she finished, she slid it across the table. It was from Olivia. She'd been sentenced to 6 months for her role in the fraud. Probation. Community service. Nothing compared to the damage she'd done, but enough to make it real. The letter wasn't an apology. It was a deal. She claimed our parents were working on something new. Another scam. This time, they were trying to pin everything on her, cut her loose and vanish with new IDs in another state. She swore she had proof, records, bank statements, phone backups. But she would only hand it over to Emily. Not me. The last line of her letter made Emily pause. Made her read it twice. I've realized something. You married the wrong person. But he married the right one. Emily folded the letter neatly, slid it into a drawer, and said, "She wants attention. Let her rot in silence." I agreed. But a week later, without telling me, Emily forwarded it to my lawyer, just in case.